to Colin and I's first session on how to turn a group into your team. So Colin, over to you. Tell everybody about who you are and what you do.
Hello there. So yeah, I'm Colin Moby. I have the wonderful title because you get to choose your own job titles when you do what we do, don't you? Which is one of the fun parts. I call myself a team maker and shaker. So yeah, a teamship consultant would be the flash word. Yeah, I basically help teams reconnect, rediscover themselves, find their common purpose and go out there and smash their company goals in a fun way. I'm also a bit of a geek, as you'll probably see from all the pictures and stuff on my walls. So yeah, I bring a lot of that into the fun that I have during the day.
Fantastic. So we met probably, wasn't even 2 months ago, wasn't it? And we've been talking about this lovely stuff for the last few weeks and decided to put something together to help other people kind of make things better. And we're going to be explaining a little bit more about that later. But me, I'm Tash, and I'm a neuro-linguistic programming master practitioner. And basically I help people and teams and individuals create and manage change from all different areas. So, and obviously specifically for this is how to improve team engagement and help people feel good at work. So, and that's what I love about my job, because I basically help people fall in love with their jobs again and help them communicate and get on with everybody, which is kind of quite helpful when you're at work, isn't it?
It's underrated, I think, that being a decent person, that doesn't mean not being yourself. If you've got a bit of snark, if you've got a bit of grumpiness, that's cool, but just being a decent person underneath that and the joy. I'm on a mission to create a word in the English language that actually means joy at work. There isn't a word for it. The word Abergashlat exists in Scandinavian, and it means joy at work, and it only exists in 3 languages out of the 6,500 in the world. We need a word that means joy at work to set that expectation, and it's okay to enjoy the job you do.
Definitely. So let's share a little bit about what Teamship actually is, and then we'll kind of go into a bit more detail about what we're going to be covering in this session and what you guys can take away from this as well. So Colin, what is Teamship all about?
Yeah, I think it's important to understand that it's not just team building. It's not just working together as a team and those kind of things we kind of pay a little bit of lip service to. It's actually a skill. It's actually something that we've ignored, in the same way that leadership is a skill, in the same way that followership is a skill. It's something we can actually learn, we can develop, we can practice and get better at. It's not something that suddenly happens. You've got to invest time, energy into both the practice, but also the thinking you do. But fundamentally, the skill is one of figuring out how to be yourself in an environment where lots of other people are being themselves, and you find the overlaps, the spaces to collaborate, the spaces to breathe, the spaces to challenge, the spaces to support. It's that moment where you get it, and it all comes together as a unit. And essentially it means you've got to face reality. It's not about pretending that things are okay or ignoring things. It's actually facing reality, listening to what's really going on and observing that, and then stepping into a safe space, which is not easy. That's probably the hardest part of all, particularly with all the challenges that we face there with time pressures and resources being squeezed and all those kind of real life challenges. We've got to create safe spaces to actually say and do what matters. Then we've got to actually lean into the secret source of teamship, which is intimacy. We've got to share stuff. We've got to tell people about ourselves. We've got to listen to what they want, what their vulnerabilities are, all that kind of stuff. We've got to lean into that, which requires courage. A team that has embraced teamship and is practicing those skills is in a safe environment. They are being intimate. They are growing through being brave. So that's Teamship in a nutshell.
Ooh,
so it's a skill.
So it's really not about building pirate ships on company days out, that kind of thing. It's not that, is it?
No, you can do, there's a time and a place for a lovely team building exercise, build a raft and see if it sinks. I'm all for those, but those tend to be one-offs. It's actually where are you going? It's the same thing as you look at on an individual level when you create a level of self-awareness, if you like, in terms of, what is it I want? Why do I want it here? What is it about here that's going to help me do that? And how can I help them get closer to where they want to? That's the bit. So shifting that from self-awareness to shared awareness. And it's when it works, it's awesome.
Awesome. So really during this session, we're going to be, diving in straight into what makes the best teams work and how you can immediately start to shift your thinking and your behavior and language to help you get closer to them. So Colin, you were going to be sharing a little bit about a story when you were asked to do a presentation at work some time ago. So share with us what happened then.
Yeah, so it's a strange story, because on the face of it, it's a positive story. It's a really good story. It was back in the days before I made the C-suite, the exec, whatever you want to call it, before I was a regular member of the boardroom. But I was actually invited to the boardroom. I've been into the boardroom before and stood in for people and presented and gone in. But I was actually invited ad hocly. I literally got a phone call saying, "Can you pop up to the boardroom? We need you." And you start thinking, "Oh, they need me. This is going to be good. This is going to be awesome." So I walked in and sat down, and it was chaos. It was carnage. It was, let's just say, discussions, but there were arguments on what was going on. And I very quickly realized they were trying to prepare for a town hall meeting. So all 600 of the team were going to be, for the first time in years, together off-site. And they were trying to work out the day and the logistics, but also the slides and the presentations. They eventually turned to me and said, "Oh, we've got a hole in our schedule. Could you do the hour after lunch?" I thought, okay, first thing I thought, oh, the after lunch slot. Yay. The bit where everybody's full up on their free lunch, which was all really anybody was talking about with the away day, was, yeah, we get a free lunch. But I thought, actually, opportunity here to maybe do something. That didn't last long, because within about 3 seconds, they then slid over to me some pieces of paper which said, "And here's what we want you to say."
Oh, ouch.
And so within a very quick period of time, my kind of glory moment of standing in front of the team shifted to something else. And I had some choices to make at that point. And it was interesting in terms of sitting there listening to the leadership telling me what I was going to say to my team. Was an interesting moment. And I think it encapsulated some of the teamship kind of challenges we face today, which is, leadership, going back to that reality I mentioned, leadership tends to decide they know what the team needs, what the team wants. They might ask occasionally, one of the phrases that I hate is employee survey. Quite often see that, what question should an employee survey ask? And for me, the first question is, why do we need an employee survey? To find out what a team is thinking. But absolutely, it's this. But there's what's quite dangerous in teamship is, have you ever, how often have you been there where leadership is telling you how the team thinks, how the team feels? How often have you experienced that?
Yeah. And do you sometimes get frustrated, when, you're being open with your team and you expect the same, but all that happens is they just clam up and they look in the completely opposite direction, and, you've completely lost them. And, sometimes do you dread a really, really tricky conversation with somebody, but then actually when you have it, it goes much better than you expected. Does that happen so often, doesn't it? And I think one of the great things we can do with language instantly, and do this straight away, you guys, is instead of a tricky or a difficult conversation, turn that around to a courageous or a brave conversation, because that's the power of language. Because when you do that, what you say will change, how you behave will change, and your body language and tone and pace will change as well. And the outcome as a result of all those things will be different to whether or not you're thinking it's going to be tricky. Because if you're saying it's tricky, then your RAS in your brain will pick up tricky, it's going to be really hard. But if you say it's going to be courageous and brave, your RAS in your brain, which we'll go into a bit later, is picking up, the easy and the comfortable and the confident stuff that comes through from that conversation as well. So there's so many reasons why teamship is so important these days, especially, isn't it? Because I guess really over the last 18 months, 2 years with COVID, teams have been, disconnected due to obviously COVID, working remotely, hybrid working, all those kind of things. And you were going to share some stats around this thing about presenteeism and how damaging that is, and how that's become so prevalent over the last few years as well.
Yeah, I think when companies invest in teams, whatever that investment is, whether it's a course or a wellness day or all these things, which, in of themselves aren't wrong, but if they're not joined up, if they're not, if the intent behind them isn't right, absolutely. Yeah. And if they're not something people want, then they're not going to land as effectively as they could. No. But what they tend to focus on is keeping people in their job. So avoiding turnover, avoiding
retention. It's all about
honing in on retention. That was a word I was struggling to say. That awful word, but yeah, honing in on retention. or they tend to focus on hiring and, smoothing that process out, bringing people in the right way and the right mindset. Again,
Onboarding.
both of those are good places to look at. But what's really stark from a lot of the most recent studies and numbers is that we're starting to get a better insight into the way companies work, teams work. And there's some research. I'll share the link after the video, but essentially across Europe, so taking the last few years, they worked out that poor mental health, which is the end result of a poor team environment, not even an ineffective team environment. So lack of productivity, just being tired, as well as the further issues of struggling, depression, all those kind of things, is somewhere between 378 and 469 billion euros a year is lost due to mental health issues. Now, if we just take a simple number of 400 billion in the middle of that, so that my brain can do the maths, 70 billion of that is due to turnover, that retention bit we talked about. 100 billion is around hiring new stuff, the onboarding process, all that kind of stuff, which means the 230 billion that's left is due to presenteeism. So the biggest area where your lack of concept of team, feeling unsafe, feeling unproductive, not feeling any meaning, is in the people that are turning up to work every day.
Yeah,
so we've got this
that's
weird
contagious,
focus.
isn't it?
Absolutely. Well, that leads into people leaving, and that brings down the people that are joining. So we're dealing with these two ends, the beginning and the end, but we're not dealing with the bit in the middle. You go on LinkedIn, you go on any kind of convention, any kind of talk, and they tend to talk about those two things as these kind of stop the taps, this end, and make the tap better. Valuable things to do, but what we really need to do, where Teamship shines, is in the middle. And we tend to ignore those people. Oh, they're already here, they're already doing stuff, whatever. Let's look at the shiny new people. Or, let's get rid of the phrase I hated from corporate days, but the dead wood focus and all that kind of stuff. You got this big group in the middle, and that's where both the opportunity to do the right thing by them exists, but also from a business perspective, where the opportunity to really create something special, to really grow, to really make money, to be able to really reward what you're doing, who's doing what it is you need them to do. So we need to.
And when you talk about intimacy, that's all about getting closer with your team as well. And the whole reason for that is to smash those company goals, isn't it? And those goals can be financial, your targets, your KPIs, whatever that looks like. Like you said quite rightly, the well-being and mental health at work, balance, harmony, all that kind of lovely stuff. The communication goals, culture, and company values and identity, and everything around that. And when we are a team, we smash all that, because firstly, we kind of, we know what those values are, and it's a shared destination. But secondly, everybody's working together to achieve that, and it's clear. That's important, isn't it?
Clarity is so important. How many people, what we tend to focus on is our job. We kind of understand most of the time what our job is, what we're expected to do. What we need to do is go a bit beyond that, both as an individual and as a team, and look at our purpose that's connected to the job. What's the point of that job? Why does that job exist? Then we need to look at so what happens when that comes together? When I do that thing for this reason, what happens? And is that the right thing? So the impact you're having, am I getting the impact that I expected to get? Because if not, then either something's wrong with my job, or I'm not connected to my purpose. And where Teamship shines is in the end bit is, why the hell am I doing that? What does that mean for me? What does that mean for the people I'm sat next to? And that's where the intimacy comes into, is I want to share why I'm doing this. Not to the extent, you don't have to go overboard and your whole life story and everything, but to a point where I'm comfortable from my personal perspective in sharing why I'm doing this. And I want to hear why you're doing it, because in those magical spaces, you'll suddenly go, oh, I didn't realize you did that for that reason. That's cool. I do it a bit like that too. And then suddenly click. You'll find that
that's a penny drop moment, isn't it?
And you work a bit harder. You don't work extra hours, but you work. Your brain, that clarity clears some of the fog out. The procrastination starts to cut back. All those types of things happen, and your productivity just improves. And like you say, then you talk, your communication's better because you understand somebody better, and then that layers up and layers up and layers up. And then if you do have a misunderstanding, it's sorted out quicker.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean, we don't always sort them out straight away perfectly, but they're sorted out quicker.
Yes, dealt with, worked through, all those kind of things. Yeah.
So you get back to productivity quicker, and so on and so on and so on. It's the same with any type of relationship. The more intimate you are, the more vulnerable you're willing to be, the more reward you'll get out of it. Again, I don't want to step over it. It comes back to that safety bit. You need to feel safe enough to do that. And yes, there is a challenge with psychological safety in the workplace.
The boundaries.
But that starts with you deciding how you want to be and sharing that with other people.
Absolutely. So we're talking about how to turn a group into a team, but I guess what we need to do is to really kind of work out and explore what is the difference between a group and a team. So bear with me, because I'm going to share the screen into a little video here. There we go. Hey. So what is a group? So, you can see from this, and Colin, please do, interject here. You've got a series of people working independently, bobbing along in the ocean, no particular goals that we can see. They've all probably got a place to get to, but there is absolutely no guarantee that they're going to get there. And, really the destination is nowhere, is there? Have you got anything to add to that?
It reminds me of a skill I've let slide for many, many years, because I'm old and don't like getting into wetsuits these days, but I used to windsurf. And when you go out windsurfing, I did not like going out far. I don't like being in the sea. The idea of a fish swimming by me just freaked me out, as much as I love water. So I wouldn't go out far. But then I had friends who would go out and go as fast as they could, as far as they could. We were all doing the same thing. We were all a group of windsurfers, but we were all literally off in different directions, because we weren't, we had our own individual fun, and we got out of it our own things. But we were all doing it for different reasons, and we were literally off in all different directions. And that's a group. I think this self-interest, what you want out of it, comes way above anything else, usually to the expense of something else. So, if I didn't want to go out that far, and that was the only option that day, I wouldn't go out. I'll go and do something else. So it's a group, it puts self-interest at the expense of the group.
Right.
That makes sense.
Whereas when you're working as a team, and looking at, working together as a ship, it's all about knowing how to, trim the sails and tack successfully and use the wind to our favor and to balance the load and all these lovely other sailing terms, so that we can, really learn how to work together and get to our destination quickly and effectively, and, learn also how to navigate those rough seas and storms, because there are going to be bumps along the way, isn't there?
Absolutely. This is where the windsurfing analogy breaks down, because it's hard to get more than one person on the board. But if you take the ship concept, then absolutely, sharing my vulnerability about not wanting to get in water, stick me in the middle of the ship, stick me as far away from the edge of the ship as you can. But I can still, I know how to sail, I know how to do certain things. So there's still a valuable role I can play on the ship. And the ship, we're all going, I don't mind going further out then, because I feel safe, I feel part of the team. They're doing the bits that I don't want to do.
Exactly.
And so, and they're doing the bits they enjoy doing. And if we go a bit faster than I would be comfortable with, you know what, that's okay. It's that self-interest has given way to shared self-awareness. I understand why I feel that way, and then you start to share that.
Yeah, exactly. So just looking at the sails here on the image, you've got that self-awareness, you've got the trust, you build the clarity, you have fun, because what's the point of working if you can't have a little bit of fun as well? Surely that should be high up on the top of the agenda. Having those shared goals and being clear about what they are, and being curious and separating the behavior from that person and thinking, actually, why are they behaving like that? Maybe I need to talk in a different way so they understand what I'm saying, rather than just expecting everybody to understand what you're doing, which results in achieving your goals, whatever they are, feeling good and asking for help, and also being supported. And I think that's so important, isn't it? If the people around you are keeping everything inside of them, then that's not helpful. So you've got to start doing things different in order for everybody else to be able to be confident to share what's on their mind, to ask for help, but also be able to support other people.
Definitely. I think going back to those stats, the mental health, which, is a huge topic, and we're not going to get to in here, but keeping things to yourself, which you just said, really stands out, because when you hold things back, when you don't bring your true self to work, which, it takes up, even if it's 6 hours a day or 4 hours a day or 2 hours a day in some jobs, if you're not being yourself for a period of the day, then that takes energy, that takes effort, that conditions your thinking in a certain way. And we deserve more than that. We deserve better than that. We're society is moving on. Society needs to embrace these kind of the old ideals of, you go to work to earn a salary, so shut up and get on with it. No,
exactly. You spend a lot of time there.
And why would we want other people to think like that? So we've got to challenge that, and we've got to, it is possible to do a job that's challenging, that makes you grow, that has frustrating moments, that pushes your boundaries, but also is fun, is enjoyable. You build relationships, you grow professionally, you grow personally, and you grow spiritually. And I don't mean that in the sense of spiritual, but in the sense of having the space to reflect and look at, is this what I really want? Is this giving me meaning and that kind of stuff, and give more to the world? So as lofty as that can sound sometimes, it's more than possible.
Yeah, absolutely. So what are the main characteristics of either being in a group or a team? So these are kind of things that we've come up with over the last few weeks of talking. So members of groups are driven by self-interest, which you talked a lot around here, whereas team members, they're driven by shared awareness. And we will, over the next 2 or 3 sessions, delve in a little bit more to self-awareness and what that actually is as well. And that ties in really nicely with curiosity as well, doesn't it?
It does. You've got to be curious about yourself, your self-awareness, to be able to, again, to be your true self with others, which then they'll be their true self with you. And that's where that shared awareness comes from. You start to see, okay, I can see a bit of why you're doing that. I start to join the dots up in my head, but actually I can start to see a couple of dots in your mind that are linked to my dots. And it's those links, it's those joining ups that's really powerful. That's it. So a team, the end result of a team has basically joins up more dots.
Yeah. And one of the great skills around that is to also not mind read, because it's something that we do all the time, isn't it? If you walk past somebody in the corridor and they give you a funny look, you're like, oh, I've done something wrong. And then you end up telling stories about why that person doesn't like you. And then the next time you communicate with them, it's a bit narky. And so it's just really important just to learn how to confidently communicate and ask that question. I thought that you meant this, or you said that in a funny way. Did you mean it? So it's just really being clear and being honest and being confident to ask those right questions to get to the fact of the matter, rather than, listening to those stories that we tend to tell ourselves.
Stories, it's not what we think about our team, our fellow team members, is what we think about what they think. About us. It's not what we think they think about us, what we think about what they think about us. It's all about the thoughts. It's all about what we're thinking. And once you recognize that, and once you're aware enough and safe enough to say, what was that? What was going on there? Can you help me understand that? And it's okay for somebody to turn around and say, I didn't like how you did that. Which is a very different conversation to, I don't like you. Or you're in, when we high pressure environments, particularly corporate environments, or any type of intense environment, emotions do come up. But what you want to be able to do is feel safe enough to say, that's the emotion speaking.
Exactly. We're not robots.
Absolutely. And that's, again, that intimacy, that feeling like you can actually put an arm around somebody, even if they've snapped or whatever, and say, I know you've got kids, I've got kids, but I know teenagers, I know their hormones rage. And some of their behavior is down to that, but it doesn't mean you accept the behavior. You can understand the behavior and not accept it. Those two things are very different. And I think sometimes teamship, I've had conversations with people, that means you've all got to be nice, and it means you've got to be honest, and you've got to understand that you can understand why somebody did that. You can want to understand it. That doesn't mean you have to accept it, and that's a very different thing. And a true team understands and accepts. And they talk about
does something about it and actions it if necessary. That's listen. That's your tag, isn't it? Listen, repeat, act. Is that right?
Listen, repeat, act. So absolutely. Listen, do, repeat. Listen, act, repeat. You got me going. Listen, act, repeat. I need to listen to my own voice. Listen, act, repeat. But yeah.
So some of the other characteristics of groups and teams: a group has a common fate, a team has a common purpose, and that's all about a clear mission, isn't it? Let's just run through a couple of other these as well. So a group has their actions coordinated, they're independent. A team is accountable for achieving their goals, they're interdependent. A group is about the tasks, a team is about the goal, and groups are led by deciding and delegating, and teams by listening and doing.
Cool. I imagine most people will recognize elements of those in certain jobs and certain teams, you know, and we're all on different journeys, we're all at different points. And I think, again, if you want to be in a team, if you want to embrace teamship, if you want to build the skill, it's going back to that curiosity bit. So, okay, so which of those things did I recognize in what I'm doing right now? And do I want to change? If I am, you know, a group is about the tasks, not the goal, you know, micromanaging, command and control, all those styles that, to me, you know, we should have stopped 30 years ago, but for
with the dinosaurs,
you know, it cannot be, you cannot conceivably believe that is the best way to run a team, run an organization. Yet we still do it. Still do it. So we need to be brave enough to question that and decide ourselves, again, this self-awareness. Is that what I want? How much effort, energy, time, money am I willing to spend in trying to change that, or move?
Yes.
You know, let's make no bones about it. Sometimes part of teamship is it's okay to say, this team is no longer the place for me. I can no longer help them, and I've outgrown them. They've outgrown me in different ways, and we're growing in different directions. That is okay. That's a good thing to realize and move somewhere else. So we shouldn't always be about shut up and put up.
So how do the people who are watching this know if they're part of a group or a team?
So again, it can sound like a broken record. For me, it'll always come back to looking into yourself first. So, okay, so how do I feel? How aware am I of my purpose with this team? How do I feel about my part, my role that I play with this group of people? How comfortable am I with the person I am at work? A really simple example is, I know it'll feel like a long time for many people, but you know, desks at work, how many people have pictures of their kids or pictures of their partner or picture of their dog or their cat? Or I still do, because it's my desk here. I used to have Darth Vadar. I took him everywhere. He would sit on my desk, or a little Lego figure, something of me. It's almost like we're desperate. Kermit, brilliant. We're desperate to bring a piece of us into the office. And so don't bring a piece. That's a step. Have a look around. If you're just bringing pieces of you into work and not more of you, the whole of you if possible, but enough of you that you're really comfortable with, then you're probably in a group. If it is just that picture, and when anybody says, oh, is that your kids? You go, yeah, and that's it.
Yeah,
there's something going on there that you're in a kid. If you go, that's oh, how, or they look at the picture and they know their names, they ask about them, they talk about them, or you strike up a conversation about Star Wars or whatever, then you're more likely to be closer to a team. So again, that look at yourself. How much of you are you bringing to work? Because that's a good sign of whether you're in a group or a team. What about you? What would be the first thing you look for?
It would be around that. The really understanding what the goal is and feeling like we're all working towards that together. I mean, I've worked on my own for the last probably 3 or 4 years in this job and another job before that. But the best feeling was being surrounded with other people who were lifting each other up rather than, working against each other. Because I think, I've always worked in sales, and sometimes what can happen is that the goalposts change, and then you're asked to go and work on a different project, even though you've put in loads of effort to it. And then, somebody else takes credit for your work and they end up getting paid the commission. That is part of a group. Whereas when you're part of a team, everybody works towards those common goals. It's clear, it doesn't change, and the targets are achievable. But you kind of want to exceed that because they are achievable, and you feel like you're all part of it, working together, and everybody supports each other rather than, trying to nick each other's work. For me, in my kind of working experience, that's what it's all about. And like I say, really spend so much time at work. And I've been in jobs where I've dreaded the walk to work and dreaded being in that space, and that horrible feeling where I just really did not want to be there. But I felt at the time I had no choice. I don't know why I felt that. And obviously things are different now, but that's a really horrible feeling. And that's something that I just don't want anybody to go through. And at the time I didn't really understand that I could change that, either to leave or to make the situation different. So yeah, the being part of the team thing is just really enjoying other people's company while you're in that space all together at that same time. And it could be, working from home. I mean, we're a team now, even though we're based in different areas of the country. And I like the fact that we're doing something together because we've got different, similar kind of skills, but we're coming together and created the team around, the teamship. So, and that's just mutual connections and the ability to chat and to, to draw out the best in each other. I think, to me, that's what it's all about.
I like that kind of, that getting it, that kind of, it when you feel it. It reminds me of, the best, you talking there about not feeling like you had to go to work and those kind of things. How often do we allow, or we assume that something external is going to create the team?
Yeah.
I remember years ago, a couple of decades now, showing me age, but when I was doing some work in the energy industry, the government changed the VAT rules with literally no notice whatsoever. So from a software perspective, it was in IT, we had a very short time. So the teams came together, and it was one of the best times. That's the work we got through. The communication was amazing. We had this forced deadline, and it was brilliant. Everybody was open. We had a laugh. It was pressure, but my word, it was brilliant. And as soon as it was done, it was such an anticlimax because everybody kind of went back to working in the old way. And it was like, well, why do we allow this external thing to force to this crucible of fire to forge us into a team? And then we all went back to our own. It was such a weird time afterwards. I mean, we've got the thing with Teamship is it's an internally driven thing. It comes from you wanting to work better, you wanting to work differently, you wanting to get more out of it, not because there's a deadline or there's some rule or there's some process or something that's making you, some external thing that's doing it.
Yeah, you're feeling good.
Once you can shift to that, once that's the getting it, you continue to get it. I think that's a good sign that you're in a team. It's like, well, we don't need a deadline or a project or big thing or somebody to an edict to get us to work better together. We're doing it because we want to.
Yeah, absolutely.
So recognize that feeling.
Yeah, definitely. So when we kind of behave, that's all reflective on how we talk to ourselves and how we speak, out loud. NLP, it stands for neuro, so it's everything to do with how we see, feel, hear, and touch, smell. And L stands for linguistics, so it's how I'm talking now using language, but it's obviously all the non-verbal communication that happens. And that's between 70 to 93%. So it's not necessarily sometimes what we say, but how it's coming across and how that message is being received. And the P stands for programming. So it's really understanding how all of those memories have been imprinted to us since birth and then make us behave a certain way. So it's those patterns of behavior. So really, NLP is a study of how we communicate and how we feel, and understanding how we're programmed to act and to feel and our moods, basically. And language is a big part of that. And language is so powerful. And I don't think most people appreciate this, because what we say affects our health for sure. So, talking positively is great, but it also has an amazing impact on ourselves. And there were 2 neuroscientists in America that did, massive studies on this. And they found, with studies and scans and all this kind of other lovely technology, that when we talk negatively, it has a direct impact onto our cell structure. So basically, when we talk negatively, it makes us ill. So, this isn't just made up stuff. This is, really, really true. And, that the most important thing we can do is to become aware of how we're talking to ourselves, that self-talk, and that comes with self-awareness, obviously. And when it comes to teamship, it's also really helpful to look at the language as how you're talking about your team and leaders. So are you saying things like the them and us? Is it the Chiefs and the Indians, the David Brentisms, talking from the same hymn sheet and all that kind of stuff? And I know you've got a couple of quotes that you just like to share a little bit more about, why it's so important. So which one did you want to have a look at first?
Well, there's one of my favorites, a Richard Branson quote, which is around don't treat your staff the way you want to be treated. I mean, firstly, my issue, I have such an issue with the word staff. Any, again, like I said, I'm such a word nut. But staff has its origins in back in the days of slavery and back in the master and staff and all those kind of concepts of hierarchy. I am better than you because I can afford to pay for your services. It has that inherent thing. So staff, employee, is a sense of ownership in those words. Asset, resource.
Asset, I hate that one.
HR is a conversation for another day. But wouldn't it be awesome if we changed HR to human development or human growth department or human,
that's
just
nice.
human belonging department? But we don't. It's a resource. Just those words, we don't always recognize it, but they do chip away. They chip away at our sense of self-worth, and it is, I'm just an employee to you. And that's why I've always, the most powerful unit for me is team, because team, just in the word team, has no real hierarchy. A team, that doesn't mean there's not a leader in certain things, but a leader is just somebody who people follow. That's it, in its strictest term. So firstly, looking at staff. Secondly, exactly as you say, that you and them thing, we've been conditioned, leadership has conditioned us to think they know what it is. And they talk about, we kind of pretended around the we's and the us's, but in reality, they mean me. I want this, and therefore you are my vehicle to delivering this. And actually, leadership needs to sit alongside the team. It's just a different skill set, needs to sit down there. And again, these words we use just subtly chip away at us. But the employee, staff, kind of all those words, just call it your team. And you can say your team because you're part of it. It's not my team as in it's my team and you're on my team.
Yes.
Anybody in a team, it's my team. You want to belong to it. It's not an ownership per se, it's a belonging thing. And I think when you start challenging that, and going back to what you were saying earlier, that intent behind the word is what's important. And we don't, our subconscious is a sneaky little blighter. It hears, staff, they belong to me, or employee. They belong to the organization. So there's lots of those.
And it's it's how we talk, like I said earlier, reflects our behavior around that. So even after watching this, just start bringing awareness to how you are talking about your team, even if you're not talking to them at the time, but if you're down the pub talking to your friend about them, or if you're talking about, is it a work colleague that you're talking about, or is it a work buddy? Because then you will act very differently if you're talking about your colleague as just a colleague, and you'll say things differently, you'll communicate with them differently, you'll interact with them differently. Whereas if you were to change that language to your work buddy, where you're going to behave differently around them, you're going to say different things around them, your tone is going to be different, the rapport and the connection you have with them is going to be very different. And it's just a small tweak to language has a massive impact to how you behave around that, which, funnily enough, affects the outcome. So if you say they're my work colleague, well, it's a bit of a dead end, isn't it, really? And that's probably where it's going to end. You do walk in the door, they're your colleague, you do your stuff, and then you walk back out again. But if they're your work buddy, then it just goes so much further than that, doesn't it? So you might have a WhatsApp with them at the end of the day. You didn't look yourself today. Is everything okay? Do you want to chat? Let's have a coffee tomorrow. Let's go out for lunch. Let's have a Zoom, whatever it is. But it's just changing the language changes the behavior, which changes the outcome of that communication and that connection. That's why it's so important, and that's what I love about NLP, because it teaches us to take it that step further in the way that you want it to go, which is going to be helpful for everybody and get a better outcome.
Absolutely. I know I lean into the word intimate teams, and I know a lot of people go, ooh. The word intimate has got connotations that I don't want that. And absolutely, what intimate for me is about open communication and establishing together what you want to do. There are plenty of people and plenty of successful teams that don't want to socialize every minute of the day together. They don't want to do lots of things. There are plenty of teams I know that I did some work last year with a team, and every lunchtime they would play geeky card games. I loved it. I was quite jealous. They played geeky card games, but they didn't spend much time outside of work together. That was their moment to come together, and they bonded over lunch during this game. And that's fine. You find that balance yourselves, but you've got to be willing to be intimate to a point and own the words yourselves. We can sit here and talk about, well, I don't like the word stuff, but if to be brutally honest, if the team like it, if they're happy to be team colleagues and that's what they want, and that's successful for them and they can make it work, cool. It's not about imposing words. It's about looking at that word and saying that word, if you don't,
what does it mean? What's behind it?
Why are you using that word? What's going on with it? you know, from a personal perspective, I don't like, you mentioned David Brent earlier, and, you know, the teamwork makes the dream work and all that kind of stuff. And I don't like, you know, but trust me, you don't want my dreams to come true. They're wicked. They're very strong. You don't want my dreams. What you do want is my aspirations, the things I can see I want in my life. I want to share those with people, because I believe I can get those. I believe those, not just realistic, but they are achievable through hard work with the help of others. Whereas dreams are something I'm hoping, you know, fingers crossed, the world will give me, not I'll get. And as a team, you want to control your own destiny. So don't worry about your dreams. They're open for the fates. Don't worry. Go back to that fate thing. What is it you want, and create a purpose that will get you there, that will give you that. So again, just watching out for those subtle words. But not throwing away, like you say, just being curious about it, saying, where's that word come from? Why are we using that word? It's interesting.
Better? So let's look at some red flags then, that, you know, the people watching this might start to maybe become more aware of, or I might say these things, they're like, oh, okay. So some of the red flags that we've come up with and explored over the last little while is maybe your team goals are constantly changing, and, you know, you've given up just being interested, and that's kind of like feeling of like meh kind of takes place most of the day. That would be a massive red flag that I think definitely need to be worked on. Perhaps, you know, those regular meetings that were put in the diary to happen every day or every week are either not happening, or they just get put off because there's always something else to do and everybody's too busy. That's a massive red flag as well, isn't it? You know, you've got your thing about being busy. Talk to us about that.
Busy. Again, a word.
Busy.
You never hear anybody use the word busy in a good context. Oh, I'm so busy. I love it. So I'm really busy. I'm just really busy. It's always got a feeling to it. But either I'm too busy to spend time with you, or I'm keeping you busy by spending time. So sometimes it's the flip side as well. Why am I going to all these meetings? We seem to be having a lot of meetings and we're talking about the same stuff, or who's this for? Whichever way of that is, but that lack of understanding, lack of control and understanding over what's going on. And meetings are one of the key things to watch for, because they're just, again, it's a common vocabulary. We all understand it. Most people you talk to have worked on, far too many meetings. I like where I love where you are with the important meetings, you know, the important conversations. Meetings is just a framework, isn't it? But if you're not having the conversations you need to have, I've worked with clients where, you know, they don't speak to their boss. They never speak to them, and it's like, oh, it's okay, they're busy. That's not okay. That's not okay.
No, absolutely
Likewise, you need to be able to say that's not okay, and say, I want a meeting with you. It's okay to say that as well. I think busyness is way overrated. We need to be in control. We need to decide. We need to choose what we're going to do, and we need to choose what's important to us. And that's, some meetings are, some aren't.
Definitely.
If they're not, stop them. If they are, create them.
Exactly.
It's simple, really, when you think about it. But
and so another couple of red flags. You don't feel part of something. You know, there is no purpose and there is no meaning. You can feel yourself becoming a little bit of a mood hoover and a fun sponge. And I love those terms because, you know, the team chat can be sometimes less than helpful. And sometimes you might feel that you're kind of becoming part of that because you're not stepping aside from it, or feeling like you can't change the direction of that conversation. So that's definitely a red flag. And also, maybe when procrastination isn't just a fleeting moment and it's not a feeling, it's actually becoming part of your daily behavior. That's a massive red flag that instantly needs to be shifted and worked upon straight away.
Yeah, absolutely. Procrastination is another skill. The more ironically, the more you do it, the better you become at it. It's actually a case of not procrastinating. It's, well, what's a better skill to spend my time on? And as a team, when you become a group, you do find yourself, distraction comes a lot easier, doesn't it? It's easier to get distracted rather than traction. Going in the same direction, the right direction.
Stop thinking, just start doing.
So yes.
So some people, we've kind of thought it'd be really great if you can actually start using some of these things that we share in our work straight away. And here's a couple of things that we'd like to share with you. So first thing, Colin, we're going to suggest something that the people who are within those teams, how to start changing things and the kind of questions that they might be able to start asking straight away.
Yeah, I think it's easy. I'll try and get it right this time. My listen, act, repeat. It's right, but it's easy to get caught up in either something too big or where do I start? Where do I start? And if you really want to, you do have to listen to yourself and to your team. But what I'd always suggest is just start somewhere small. Like we just talked about meetings. What's one thing you can do to ask your team about the meetings they want? Are we all enjoying the team meetings? Is there a different way we could do this that we'd enjoy more? Ask them what they want, share what you want, be prepared to share what you want. So you're willing to be vulnerable by sharing your wants. So hopefully they'll start to lean into that and share their wants. But don't try and don't just listen to your team with own questions. So what do we want as a team? Start somewhere small. What do we want?
Yeah.
A classic.
Specific.
I've worked with a lot of tech teams, and my God, the number of apps they've got to talk to each other is just, we've got Slack and WhatsApp and Signal and Jira and God knows what else they use, and still email and still text and still all those other things. Talk to each. First question: as a team, how do we want to communicate mostly, or what do we want our primary one to be? Because I email everybody and I never get a response. Is that should I be using in Slack? You only ever seem to. So don't get into the sort of thing, but just ask, what communication method do we want as a team? Don't care about what the company standard is. A team. What do we like? What do we want to use during the week? What do we want to use out of hours? Or just get the conversation going to get you all joining in and contributing something that will improve the life of the team. How do we all I'm a morning person. I was one of those people that were walking in the morning to an office and go, morning. And I know plenty of other people are not that type of person until they've had their 7th cup of coffee or whatever. So, it's a light-hearted bit. What do we want to do in the morning? Who's happy to get into a conversation? I'm a morning person. Who's not? Just so I know, because I don't want to annoy people. Find something to start a conversation about, and that will move your team closer together.
Yeah. And how do you feel about the daily huddles and stuff like that?
So I'm a bit of an agile on that. So daily stand-up in Scrum, the concept of short and often. I will always, from a personal perspective, I think you can have a conversation, make it short to the point, and do that more often rather than there's a place for a lengthy, in-depth discussion, but that should be less frequent, because that in of itself will raise lots of things that you need lots of short discussions on, and you just grow tired. So I'm all for, even in the agile world, we spend 15 minutes or however long, but usually 15 minutes on a daily stand-up. It's not a daily stand-up, a daily scrum, sorry. But we can't find 15 minutes to spend together as a team asking, well, what's working well as a team? What's working better, and what we can do next as a team to improve it? Those 3 questions that are core to a daily scrum, we don't find 15 minutes to ask those as a team. And imagine by the end of week 10, when you've done 50 of those, just 50 15-minute sessions. Imagine the things that will have come up as a team, that you'll have revealed about each other, that you'll have done as a team, done as individuals that contribute to the team. Imagine the difference you'll have made.
It's amazing.
Short and often would be my recommendation.
And like you were saying earlier about how you communicate, I did a piece of work for a company a little while ago, and their overwhelming sense of too many emails was the thing that they did not like. They like the WhatsApp for the kind of the group chat, and they have lots of field service engineers, so it was a really great way to share images and stuff like that, and it seemed to work for a bit of banter with a male-dominated team. It was great. But they said, the beginning of every email, in that little title, the header title, is an action. What you need to do from this is all you need to do is read it, or I need a response by, or can you let me know by, it's having an action within that subject heading that really came out of that change management session that we did. And everybody was in agreement. Some people hated receiving emails over the weekend. Some people loved it. So as a result of that, people said, oh, actually, would you mind just putting a delay send on it so that it gets to me by, 9 o'clock on Monday morning or whatever it is? Because if I receive it in my inbox and I see it, it makes me feel like I need to do more work, and I don't want that overwhelm, and I don't want to feel burned out and feeling like I'm not doing enough because somebody else is doing it. So that was come into agreement. But these kind of things would never have been actioned without understanding what people go through during the week and what makes them feel good and what makes them feel less than good.
Yeah, definitely. Email, talking about email, has reminded me about a team I work with decided together that they wouldn't look at email after 10 a.m. That they would only, as a team, look at email before 10 a.m. because they were a development team and they wanted to get into their work, they wanted to get into flow, and email's an interruption system. It interrupts what you're doing. So they put that on their footers on their email, so they let people know that we're doing that. But the number of people that would come up and say, I know you don't answer emails after 10 o'clock, but I've sent you one, can you have a look at it? But the power of the team turning around and going, we don't look at emails after 10 o'clock. And I bet you that email's asking how we're doing with that work that you tried to interrupt us with an email, and now you physically come up and interrupted us as well. And most of the time it was, can you give me an update? Well, I can give you had an update yesterday. Why do you need another update? And it's just, but the power of the team deciding that.
Wanting that to happen.
Most people will go, oh, you do it as a team, do you? Oh, okay. And they kind of, that gave it some, you shouldn't, because you should respect the individual, but it gave it more power. I think when you decide these things as a team, and they didn't just decide it willy-nilly, they looked at when most of their emails came in, they talked to their key stakeholders, all that kind of stuff. And the power of that decision as a team was cool. I think some of them cheated every now and then, but that was a choice.
Yes, exactly.
It reminded me of that
nice
team.
And another thing to real good practical tip is to really get used to being uncomfortable, because we've all got our comfort zones and it feels lovely being there and all squishy and a fluffy blanket but the more we kind of take ourselves out of that comfort zone and do things differently, behave differently, ask different questions, be curious, common theme of this conversation, the more we learn about ourselves and the more we learn about the other people around us. And it takes effort, and it takes a lot of effort to maintain that as well. But funnily enough, the more you do it, the less uncomfortable it becomes and the more comfortable it becomes. And then, we talked about being contagious. The more you do it, the more other people will also follow it. It's called mirroring in NLP terms. And then they will also start to behave like you do and also start to get different outcomes off the back of that as well. So just start to get used to being uncomfortable and doing things and saying things differently, because that's where that great cliche, isn't it? That's where the magic happens, outside those moments. When we do things the same all the time, you get the same results. It's boring. But so start being more curious about yourself and the other people around you, and just start asking yourself some different questions, and start asking some different questions. And there's never going to be a right or a wrong, as long as it feels appropriate and done with a good nature. Then I think you're always going to learn something.
Yeah, definitely. I think facing into uncomfortableness, the comfort zone concept, and that gets too much airtime, in my opinion. The reality is we're all uncomfortable pretty much 50% of the time. The depth and the degree to which we're uncomfortable changes, but we're all uncomfortable. You speak to somebody who says, yeah, I'm comfortable in this team. Oh yeah, okay, so how's it going? Well, it's okay. The work's all right. There's not many prospects. I wish I was doing something more. Salary's not great. Before you realize it, they've already described, okay, so you are uncomfortable. You're uncomfortable with the money you're in, and you're uncomfortable with the prospects. You're already uncomfortable. Why not be uncomfortable? Well, I don't want to grow, but you're already uncomfortable. So if you're already uncomfortable, you might as well be uncomfortable and the chance of your comfort being higher is greater. So once you take ownership of your uncomfortableness, and you actually choose the uncomfortableness, you know what? Challenge, talking to my team.
That's what you're not changing, you're choosing, isn't it?
Being vulnerable to my team is uncomfortable. Yeah. But the likelihood is that the payoff of that means my comfort level has got better chance of going higher. Whereas if I stay at this comfort level, I'm still uncomfortable. So why not be uncomfortable and get this? Yes. It's kind of, once you click to that, and you shift your attention on the uncomfortableness to a different type of uncomfortableness, you suddenly take ownership. And as a team, once you can start being shared, your awareness is good enough to spot that and support each other in those moments. Oh, they look uncomfortable. Let's support them.
Exactly. Being part of that teamship.
Amazing. Absolutely. It's amazing how it's just awesome when that happens.
Yeah, excellent. So we've looked at, lots of different things. We've looked at what makes a group or a team, the characteristics of a group or a team, and how to establish if you're part of a group or a team, the power of language, some red flags to start bringing awareness to, and some practical stuff to start using straight away. So what happened after that, when you did that presentation?
Oh,
I want to know.
When I was handed the script. So I went through the usual emotions from up here to back down there, but very quickly after leaving the room, I'll be honest, I binned the script. I don't even think I looked at the script. I think I might have skimmed it, but I don't think I looked at it. What I was going to do was say, no, I'm not going to do it. It's fine. I'm nervous or get somebody else. I was going to make an excuse, but I started talking to my team, and I started talking to a few other people, and I just started asking them what their expectations of this session were. And they were all glum, if I'm honest. They're all expecting to be exactly as I've heard happen in a boardroom, be bombarded with numbers, to hear glossing over the truth, all this kind of rah, 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 it's amazing, don't worry about it, it's all cool. And they were just all expecting that and looking forward to the free lunch. So I started just asking them what they wanted. And I pulled together a couple of slides. I think it was 2 pictures. It wasn't even numbers or anything. And I got badgered and I eventually sent the slides about 30 minutes before the presentation started on the day. I got into they were chasing me, the media company was chasing me like nobody's business. And when they got them, we were like, is this it? Yeah. And then I spoke for an hour, and I talked about me. I talked about what I was feeling. I talked about what I'd heard from the teams, how I felt about that. I made jokes. They were awful jokes, but they laughed. And the feedback on that set, I got a right rollicking from the board. But it cemented in my mind the feedback from the team, which helped me in many ways, was amazing. They actually, it wasn't, if I look back, it wasn't as open as I could have been. I still think there was more I could do, but it was still fairly early in my career. But I actually talked to the teams as other human beings and just listened to what they wanted, and then shared some information that I knew about that. It sounds obvious, but that just wasn't happening. And it was a start of some shifts, both in me, both in how I led, but also in how I decided I wanted to be in that organization. It was a start of a few things around the way the teams work together. It wasn't long after that the VAT thing happened. And it was interesting that we pulled together the people that had really responded to that speech, the people who really wanted to work differently. And so sometimes sometimes that, go back to that courageous bit, being brave enough to just challenge the way that things are going on in a sensible way. All right, maybe not quite that way, but in a way that works for you. So yeah, it was a binder, and people still talk about it. Was a picture with some, I can't even remember what it was. It was some pebbles stacked on top of each other. But I can just remember the image. But it still gets talked about to this day. So yeah,
that's awesome.
Ask what your team want.
Yes,
and then figure out a way to do something with it.
Yes,
don't necessarily have to do that, but do something. You've got to respect that information, that vulnerability they've just shared. So yeah, that's teamship: listening, doing, and just repeating.
Yay, amazing. So if you've enjoyed this conversation today, this is a part of a series, and next week session 2 is all going to be around working with robots. Well, nobody wants that, do they? So it's all about showing people that they matter, and we're going to be sharing some practical skills and tips to help you do that, really. So we'll be exploring how we communicate, our blind spots, our beliefs in why we do what we do, and kind of exploring a bit around why that happens and to start changing that, and some other ways to start building those intimate working relationships. We've also created a YouTube channel, which is going to be on this link as well. So feel free to subscribe there, because we'll be releasing these videos weekly on Fridays. So if you miss it on LinkedIn, then you can look up there and look at the past ones too. And in the meantime, if you want to find out more about the work that we do, because we do digital sessions, we can come, depending on where you are in the country, we can come and spend time with you for, half day, full day. It can be a series of sessions. It could be a 60-minute digital session. It really depends on, what your needs are and what you want to achieve at the end of it. But, feel free to link in with either Colin or I, and we can have a conversation to start getting the wheels into motion. Look forward to receiving all your comments. If there's anything specific that you'd like to ask us that we can cover all around Teamship, and maybe any pain points that you're experiencing right now, then we'd love to kind of delve into that for you and to answer them in the next few series.
Absolutely, yeah. Become part of our team. Talk to us, share with us, ask us whatever you want. It's a big topic, isn't it? It's a huge topic, and I can talk about it for hours, as you can probably sense. But we've scratched the surface today, and I think going deeper on some of these things. And what's important to just take a moment to recognize is how these things link together. None of this is in isolation, and I think we kind of covered some of that with what we talked about today. But yeah, get curious, ask us questions. We'd love to know what you think. Brilliant.
Yeah, great. Excellent. Great. All right. See you soon, guys. Bye.
Thanks, Tasha. Bye.